This is Ava. She just finished up at her doctor's appointment where she has been recently diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. She arrives at a busy subway platform during rush hour to get home and feels butterflies forming in her stomach when thinking about her diagnosis and how this would change her life. As she takes a look around, she sees trains arriving and departing in every direction, carrying passengers, advertisements with messages, and even cargo across her city. Now, scale that image down and place it inside the human body. That bustling subway station can be thought of as your gut, and the destination for a lot of those trains is your brain. Our gut and our brain are closely connected and communicate with each other through the gut-brain axis. This axis is the two-way communication system linking the gut and the brain and is extremely busy, similar to the bustling train system Ava saw earlier. The gut-brain axis is vast and uses nerves like the vagus nerve, hormones like serotonin, and immune signals just to get its messages across, constantly going back and forth. Ava's gut has its big bundle of its own nerves and can be called the body's second brain. This big network of nerves is known as the enteric nervous system, or the ENS, and it plays a crucial role in the gut-brain axis. It has hundreds of millions of neurons and can sense, respond, and coordinate digestion. This is a great example of neural signaling, where the gut and the brain talk to each other through nerves, and truthfully, can't get enough of each other. Since the ENS talks with the brain via the vagus nerve all the time, it makes it a key player in the gut-brain axis. Also living in Ava's gut, you can find trillions of tiny microbes, which is collectively called the microbiome. These gut-residing microbes produce chemicals that help shape brain function and mood and are a great example of microbial signaling. Finally, to keep our brain health in check, the immune system, or our body's defense system, gets in contact with the axis. For example, whenever Ava's gut feels inflamed or her body is fighting something off, like a nasty cold, those immune signals can reach her brain and influence how she feels. In immune signaling, the gut's immune cells are influenced by microbes and inflammation. This can send signals that affect her mood, but the brain can also shape immune activity in the gut through stress or other signals. When Ava feels nervous, she feels the classic butterflies in her stomach. That's the prime example of the gut-brain axis at work. This transcends beyond simple nerves and can be connected to a loss of appetite when you're stressed, needing to use the bathroom before a big presentation, or even gut-wrenching anxiety. The gut-brain axis connection explains why gut problems can affect mental health and vice versa. While all of this is happening in our bodies, let's zoom out and look at how the gut-brain axis actually presents itself in real life. When this line of communication is disrupted, what changes do you expect to see in the body? Take some time to answer this question. If you mentioned any digestive issues or mood issues, or both, you're right. Since we know that this is a bidirectional link, we can expect to see both manifest when the gut-brain axis is disrupted. Zooming out even further, this disruption can be classified as symptoms that group into three major buckets. The most obvious and common group includes digestive symptoms like constipation, bloating, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. This can also include irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, and even celiac disease. The second bucket encompasses neurological and behavioral symptoms such as anxiety, depression, fatigue, and changes in mood or cognition. Conditions like Alzheimer's or Ava's Parkinson's disease, and even brain fog reflect gut-brain influences. Our last bucket includes systemic symptoms, which can manifest through appetite changes, fatigue, and an altered perception of pain driven by disrupted gut-brain signaling. Scientists are discovering that many neurological diseases, like Parkinson's, may involve changes in this communication, with gut symptoms like constipation sometimes appearing decades before the typical motor symptoms. Misfolded proteins that contribute to the disease may originate in the gut and could travel along the brain, leading to the disease. Going back to our buckets, specifically for Parkinson's, we see chronic constipation, that's very common, along with slow digestion and other dysfunctions in the gut. Anxiety, depression, and cognitive decline occur frequently alongside motor symptoms. Sleep disturbances are also common. And finally, we can see fatigue and changes in appetite, which reflect broader effects linked to the gut-brain axis dysfunction. The question now is, how does a disease, like Parkinson's, begin in the gut and eventually reach the brain?
Now let's scratch the surface a bit more to figure out what's going on. This diverse and bustling landscape allows our guts, just like Ava's, to be in constant communication with our brains, particularly in four main ways, like four main subway lines. First up is the vagus nerve, the express train of communication and the most direct way between the gut and the brain. The nerve fibers that originate in the brainstem form synapse-like connections with neurons that line the gut and make up the ENS. This allows information relating to mood, stress, motility, and digestion to be directly sent through the nerve and rerouted to other areas of the brain in order to guide our behavior. Importantly, the vagus nerve also connects to specialized junctions called neuropods on nutrient-detecting cells. These specialized junction points allow neuropeptides and neurotransmitters produced by these cells to travel up into the brain, causing mass signaling effects. In fact, these cells are responsible for 95% of the body's serotonin levels, a crucial neurotransmitter regulating mood, sleep, and digestion. Stimulated through bacterial byproducts and available tryptophan in the diet, these cells produce serotonin that the brain can utilize via the vagus nerve to exert proper wake cycles, gastric emptying, learning, memory, and emotion regulation, among others. This also means that any disturbance to the gut can have serious effects and can influence mood disorders. Just like microbes and bacteria can be responsible for the initiation of producing serotonin, they can also create their own metabolites that may act in protective manners or not. These metabolites range from short-chain fatty acids and bile acids to neuroactive molecules and inflammatory agents. These act peripherally, or in some cases can also travel up the vagus nerve to activate different receptors across the body and in the brain. This means that they can elicit their own neurotransmitters, regulate cell development and energy metabolism, or modulate nervous system activity. In addition, they can interact with our immune systems. The microbes do this primarily by activating or suppressing certain immune cells. Typically, in the brain, this means that they modulate the activity of microglia, the brain's resident immune cells. However, this isn't the only way our gut talks to our brain through our immune system. Our gut is lined with immune cells that make up the ENS and 70% of our total immune system. These cells have special receptors that directly detect the microbiome, leading to differential cell activations. These activations will initiate different pathways and push various cytokines into the blood to induce whole body effects. These effects make the microbial and immune pathways integral crosstalk communication routes. Think of these like two intersecting subway lines that allow you to switch on and off between lines. Finally, we have the hormonal system. The specialized nutrient-detecting cells of the gut can also produce hormones, particularly those related to insulin and appetite. However, depending on the microbes present in the gut, can also be those related to mood, particularly anxiety. This communication is also the main way in which the brain alters the gut. In times of stress, the HPA axis releases cortisol, which can in turn make the gut barrier more fragile, activate immune cells, change the composition of gut microbes, or cause these specialized cells to create different hormones. Let's recap. What are the key mechanisms of each of the four communication pathways? If you guessed C, that's correct. And whoa, that's a lot going on behind the scenes. In Ava's case specifically, that misfolded alpha-synuclein protein we mentioned before is known to originate in the gut and take an express train to the brain through the vagus nerve. In addition, while some microbes may still exert a protective effect, creating a defense, Parkinson's elicits a distinct change in the microbiome composition towards conserving more inflammatory bacteria. This change may not seem like much, but it can alter Ava's symptoms in many ways. These bacteria could activate microglia in the brain, reflective of neurodegeneration and neuroinflammation, and make the gut more leaky, making that defense weaker. It can also produce cytokines that may be toxic to neurons, as well as alter mood hormones and neurotransmitters. Finally, we're unpacking some answers that could be the cause of Ava's fatigue, nights of no sleep, and aversion to her favorite foods.
It's important to remember that these four main mechanisms by which the gut and brain communicate aren't a problem on their own. Recall the busy subway platform Ava encounters. When all four tracks are clear, trains flow smoothly, carrying messages about digestion, stress, appetite, movement, and mood. But if a track gets damaged or overwhelmed, communication starts to break down, and that's when we begin to see links to disease. This pattern isn't unique to Parkinson's either. Other neurodegenerative disorders, including Alzheimer's and ALS, as well as neuropsychiatric conditions like anxiety and depression, also show early signs of gut-brain axis disruption. Each condition has its own pattern of train delays, but the core idea remains the same. When the gut-brain subway system runs off schedule, the effects ripple into the brain. Thankfully, researchers are starting to use the subway system to their advantage. Instead of creating complicated drugs that must be delivered into the brain, which is extremely difficult and could be quite risky, many interventions target the gut, which is far more accessible. And these interventions aren't complex drugs with potentially harmful side effects. Instead, it's as simple as adding healthy microbes to one's diet. While healthy microbes aren't just readily available at the grocery store, food is. Everyone, including Ava, interacts with their gut multiple times a day through food alone. This is where dietary changes, prebiotics, probiotics, and even fecal microbiota transplants come in. Everything you digest directly shapes the community of bacteria living in your gut. Sometimes the intervention is as simple as increasing fiber-rich foods or adopting a Mediterranean diet. If you're into gut health, you've probably heard about prebiotics and probiotics. Prebiotics provide fuel for beneficial gut bacteria, while probiotics introduce new beneficial microbes. Fecal microbiota transplants take this a step further by transferring stool from a healthy donor to help restore a healthy gut ecosystem. These gut-focused strategies have shown real promise in improving symptoms across conditions, from depression and anxiety to Parkinson's. In many cases, their benefits trace back to the same key outcome: reshaping the gut in a way that restores healthy communication along the gut-brain axis. For example, several studies have shown that such interventions increase healthy bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids in patients with depression. This rise reduces inflammation, increases serotonin signaling, and regulates the HPA axis stress responses, three of the major communication tracks on the gut-brain line. In Parkinson's disease, fecal microbiota transplants and high-fiber diets also restore bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids that are usually depleted in Parkinson's, improving motor abilities, reducing inflammation, and normalizing signaling between the ENS and central nervous system. So, what's actually going on here? Across these two examples, what was the common mechanism for reducing symptoms? If you answered increased production of short-chain fatty acids, well done. It turns out that one of the biggest reasons these interventions help is because they change what the gut produces. Almost all successful strategies, dietary fiber increases, prebiotics, probiotics, and even fecal microbiota transplants tend to boost the production of short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, acetate, and propionate. Think of short-chain fatty acids as maintenance crews on Ava's subway system. When they increase, they heal all four subway tracks along the gut-brain axis. This includes strengthening the intestinal barrier, reducing inflammation, supporting healthy neurotransmitter production, and regulating vagus nerve activity. Ultimately, this is what makes the gut-brain axis such an exciting therapeutic target. By increasing short-chain fatty acids and repairing all 4 communication pathways directly and indirectly, gut-focused treatments address the root of the disruption rather than the final symptoms. It's a rare opportunity in medicine, a system that is easy to access, highly responsive to lifestyle changes, and capable of influencing diseases that were once thought to be strictly brain-based.